Samantha had two best friends named Jenny and Amber. Her father was taking her on a weekend vacation, and she invited them to come along. Her family owned a cabin in the woods, and on Friday evening, her father drove the girls there. "See that lake?" asked Samantha when they arrived. "That's Lake Samantha. My dad grew up here. He loved it so much, he named me after it." That night, after they had unpacked their things, the three girls sat around and thought of ways to amuse themselves. "Does anyone have any spooky stories?" asked Amber. "I have one," said Jenny. "It's a true story, too. It happened to a friend of mine. She was babysitting these two little kids one night. She was sitting in the dark by herself watching TV, and the phone rang. She goes over and answers it and heard a voice on the other end breathing real heavy, and it said, 'Have you checked on the children?'" "Jenny, come on," Amber interrupted. "Everyone's heard that one. That's the lamest scary story ever. Does anyone else have a story, one that's actually true?" "I know one," said Samantha. "About 10 minutes hike from here, there's an old, broken-down house. We passed it by on the way up here. It's out in the middle of nowhere, way of a little, narrow side road. A long time ago, a man lived there. His whole family was really wealthy, and they owned hundreds of acres of land around here. This man met a simple country girl, and they fell in love. His family wasn't too happy about it. They didn't think the girl was good enough for him, but he ignored them. He was an independent guy, and he went off and built a little house on a chunk of their land. He married this girl, and everything was wonderful. They had a daughter first, and after a few years they had a son too. This is where the story starts to go bad. Their son was sick, not physically, but mentally. He was sick in the head. He wasn't mentally disabled or anything. He was just a little off. By the time he was 9 years old, he became too much for his parents to handle, throwing temper tantrums, erratic sleeping patterns, disappearing into the woods and hiding, those kinds of things. Not knowing what to do about his son, the man turned to his family for help. His parents had taken the boy away. They sent him to a place deep in the woods. It wasn't an insane asylum, but it catered to people with special needs, if you know what I mean. His parents thought it was for the best. Over time, the family got used to not having him around. They gradually stopped visiting him. They functioned as if they had never even had a son, and everything went back to being wonderful again. 8 years later, the boy, who was about 16 or 17 at the time, managed to escape from the hospital. The staff did a search, but he was nowhere to be found. His family was notified. They were devastated. They were worried for his safety. He had been alone in the wilderness for weeks, and he was probably dead. But the boy wasn't dead. One night, he found his way back home. He crept into his house, and one by one, he slaughtered his entire family. His father, his mother, his sister, all of them, chopped to pieces. With the blood still dripping from his axe, he disappeared into the woods. When the grisly remains of his family were discovered a few days later, townsfolk in the surrounding area were horrified. The police tried to find the boy, but it was of no use. To this day, he has never been found. Since then, every year around harvest time, people start to go missing, and in their place, a doll will be left behind. Legend has it, the boy still roams the woods around these parts.